Hey guys, Scripture here with another video, and this is kind of in line with many of the other things that we've discussed over the last month or so. Let me know in the comment section, has the Mandoverse already overstayed its welcome? I would suggest that the fact that there's even a term, Mandoverse, is problematic. And they did way too much to tie in this stuff. Instead of doing a show about Mandalorian, a show about Boba Fett, a show about Ahsoka, the tie-in kind of causes problems, as far as I'm concerned. It complicates things a little too much. And I will also suggest that originally, the Mandalorian was not a thing. Originally, they were supposed to do, or they had talked about, and there was rumors about them doing a Boba Fett movie. That was the original plan. And then someone came along and said, no, let's do a show about a guy who's exactly like Boba Fett, but not Boba Fett. And I was like, why are you doing that? Why didn't you just make the Mandalorian Boba Fett? It's super weird, and then it kind of sidelined Boba Fett entirely. I'm not going to read this whole thing because it's really long, and a lot of it is stuff we've already talked about before, but there's some stuff towards the bottom. Yeah, we already know this. Mandalorian Season 1 was super successful, so they did like 50 million shows. I think the worst thing that could have happened was that the Mandalorian Season 1 was successful because, of course, they, in their stupidity, jumped on that, thinking that was the way to everything. It's the way to all their dreams and hopes being fulfilled by just pumping out Disney Plus shows. When any reasonable person would sort of suggest that don't pump out too much stuff. A big part of Star Wars is the hype and the lack of content. And so maybe you do one show and one movie a year, or one show and one movie every 2 or 3 years. But they just went nuts, and then they started making content that was completely pointless, i.e. what I said earlier, Boba Fett was a completely pointless show. Mandalorian and Grogu is basically Mandalorian Season 4, we already know that. Mandalorian Season 3 had ended when the film was announced, and it got many people questioning if the poor reception of the third season made Lucasfilm cancel their plans. While The Mandalorian was praised among fans and critics, Season 3 had a more polarized response. Yeah, it sucked. It was all about cloning and stupid crap that has nothing to do with... And then basically, not only did The Mandalorian sideline Boba Fett, now Boba Fett's been sidelined by Bo-Katan, and we're having this whole, like, Mandalore arc. It's just... It not only requires viewers to see the Book of Boba Fett to understand why Din and Grogu are reunited. Yep, which was a huge, stupid mistake. And I talked about this in my last video. It's all about figure out why Palpatine came back in a book. Or just write your story in your story. Like, why do you have to keep adding... Like, they're just terrible writers. That's what I get out of it. It's either this gigantic scam to get you to buy tons and tons of content to get answers to basic questions in the main storyline, or they're just terrible, terrible writers. Well, or both, probably. But it also dealt more with the lore of Mandalorians and away from the fun adventure of the week format of the previous seasons. Yes, 100%. That was what made the show cool. It was about bounty hunting and stuff like that, and they just ruined it. And that ridiculous croquet match or whatever the heck it was with Lizzo, and it's just awful. How did you go from season 1 to that, Johnny? Can you explain that, please? How do you go from season 1, rugged, bounty hunting, cool show, blah, 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 everything's kind of dirty, everything's kind of, darker, and then Lizzo playing space croquet and Grogu doing flips and stuff? Like, what were you thinking? Totally changed the entire, feeling of the show. Why would you do that? It's just... they're dumb. I don't know how else to say it. Ratings slightly slipped, but the series performed better than the Book of Boba Fett or Ahsoka. Did The Mandalorian Season 3 ratings and critical response cause Disney to cancel Season 4? No. Based on the evidence, it appears Disney itself is shifting from streaming to back to theatrical. See, and again, there's no cognizant plan. Everything's just seat of your pants. Mando Season 1 was really well received, so do 15 streaming shows and don't do any movies. The sequels weren't well received. And then now it's like, oh no, the streaming shows are starting to fail. Quick! Go to the other plan where we start doing movies again. They're just completely ridiculous in terms of how they're going about this. And I understand it's the modern world, and I understand that they throw things out into the internet to see how people respond and stuff like that, and I get that. And I get that you're making decisions more based on some of that stuff than you were in the past. But it's backfiring big time. You need to have a proper plan. And again, less is more with Star Wars. Too much content has destroyed it. It's destroyed it. This aligns with Iger's plans to correct Disney following Bob Chapek's emphasis on streaming releases. Yeah, it doesn't matter. It's too late. This is not unique to Star Wars, as the Marvel Cinematic Universe Disney Plus series are also being scaled back. Yeah, well, it's like, oh no, we did some really, really, really bad shows. Don't do any more shows. It's like, it doesn't, the shows aren't bad because you did more shows. I mean, I will say, like I've said, it's too much content, but they're also just bad because they're bad. Like, you know what I mean? Like, taking these crappy people that made crappy shows and then putting them into doing movies isn't going to fix the problem. The problem is you got crappy people involved and you got to get rid of the crappy people that don't know what they're doing. The Mandalorian isn't the only Star Wars series impacted by this shift away from streaming. The Acolyte was canceled or we know about all this. Mandalorian and Grogu has less to do with the audience's reaction to the series and more economics. With how popular The Mandalorian is, particularly Grogu, I don't think it is anymore. I don't think the Grogu merchandise is nearly doing anything anymore. When I go to the stores, there's hardly any Grogu merchandise now. It's that ship has sailed. And those kids are older now. Those 7-year-olds are 12, 13 years old. They're not buying that crap anymore. You know, those 5-year-olds are 10, 11 years, they're not buying that anymore. The ship has sailed. And that's another huge mistake they made, was making it totally emphasize Grogu, the whole show. When it was about The Mandalorian, and right now, most Star Wars fans are adults that grew up on it. So when you have a show like The Mandalorian where everyone really likes it and likes that it's about bounty hunting, and then you make it about babysitting, you've already made a huge mistake. Yeah, you made a bunch of money initially. You know, Grogu was a bit of a cash cow for a bit, but he's not going to be now. All the kids that watched it, again, they're older now, and all the women that bought Grogu plushies and stuff. I had friends at work that were all into him and stuff. It's over now. The ship has sailed. They move on to something else. It's not. They're not. This isn't a situation where it's like they're all going to become the unicorn lady and have Grogu's all over their house. I'm sure there's a person out there with that, but that's one person. So that was a huge mistake. They should have stuck with Din. In fact, they shouldn't even have had Din. It should have been Boba Fett. That was the initial plan. And for the life of me, I still don't understand why they did what they did. Can someone please explain why your plan was to make a Boba Fett film, which to me is a little much anyway, and a show is a little much anyway. He was a cool side character, but whatever, fine. People like Boba Fett. You're going to do a Boba Fett show. I would have done a prequel. I think that would have been rad. Show like maybe he lives on Coruscant and maybe, you know, he has a double life where like he's on Coruscant and he can take his helmet off and he can go around and he's kind of like a normal guy, and then he, you know, people don't know he's a bounty hunter, something like that. You could make some sort of cool, complex personal story about him. Someone explain to me how it was that they went from doing a Boba Fett movie to doing a Mandalorian show. Like, why wasn't Din just Boba Fett? Like, can someone explain that to me? Like, how did they get to that conclusion? We want to make a Boba Fett movie. He's super popular. Put him on to the side. We'll do a Mandalorian show, and then we'll do a Boba Fett show after, and then we'll mix them together. And you're like, what? This was your character. This is the guy that sold all the figures. Why would you make up a new Mandalorian figure? Like, when you had the guy that was the plan. And I'd love to be a fly on the wall at Lucasfilm and find out who made that decision, or why they made that decision, who influenced Kathy to make that decision, because that is still just irks my mind. I can't understand why you would do that. A big budget Star Wars film putting the two characters together, yeah, it'll make some money, but you know what? That said, it might be time to bring this chapter of the story to a close. No, they're doubling down. This is going to be a full-blown... They're going to do... Filoni's apparently doing another movie or something. Like, they're going to do a movie where it, like, merges the Ahsoka show and Boba Fett and Mandalorian show. That's, from what I understand, what they're doing. It's become too complicated, absolutely. They never should have merged all these characters. Again, I think it was just a way to try and, like... what they did was they used the Mandalorian success to try to build up all the other shows. So, like, Mandalorian successful. Okay, make sure Mando has a relationship with Ahsoka. Oh, Mandalorian a successful show. Make sure you shoehorn Boba Fett in there and blah blah blah. They've overused the Mandalorian to prop up the other stuff, and it's not going to work, and it's failing. One of the biggest issues facing the Mandoverse is the amount of content it's amassed. Started out as one series, we know that. While each season had a long, overarching story, each episode was self-contained. Yes, it was quite well done, actually. The Mandalorian, real name Din, and Grogu would go to a planet, get into an adventure, meet some new characters, and then be on their way. Season 2 featured plenty of fan favorites from across the books. Cobb Vanth from Aftermath, animated series, Ahsoka and Bo-Katan from Clone Wars and Rebels, and feature films Boba Fett and Luke Skywalker. But it was easy for casual fans to jump into. Hardcore Star Wars fans got the deep cuts, but most audiences were casually tuning in for a fun travelogue through the Star Wars galaxy. The Book of Boba Fett complicated things. While greenlighting a series based on one of Star Wars' most popular characters who never got the spotlight seemed like a good idea, the series fumbled the bag by sticking Boba Fett to one location and not feeling like his show. It felt so little like his show that 2 episodes of the 7-episode run focused on The Mandalorian. And I've said this before, I believe strongly that those were the first 2 episodes of Mandalorian Season 3. Because remember, there was this big delay. It was supposed to come out, and then there was the big delay, and then there was Book of Boba Fett. I think they used the first 2 episodes that were completed from The Mandalorian Season 3 and shoehorn them into the Book of Boba Fett because the Book of Boba Fett wasn't going to be very popular. That's my belief. That's what I think they did. Which is totally ridiculous. And again, it just shows, even if that's not true, just sticking those in there shows just the disorganization and the mess. These episodes should have been saved for Mandalorian Season 3. Yeah, well, that's, I think, what they were. The Book of Boba Fett also featured the reunion of Din and Grogu. This means any audience who watched the emotional ending of Season 2, of Mandalorian Season 2, with Grogu leaving with Luke, was likely confused as to why, like, these people, like, how stupid can you be? That is so dumb. I just can't believe how dumb that is. It blows my mind. I don't understand I guess ultimately Kathy's making these decisions, but like, who is in her ear? Who is telling her these are good decisions? These are the stupidest decisions. And again, why wasn't Din just Boba Fett? Like, why did they go down that? It was so stupid. And then Boba Fett just becomes this like weird, like, instead of being a cool bounty hunter, which is what we all wanted, he turned into like this, like, trying to be a businessman and trying to like be nice to people. And then like, he's like befriending the Sand People. And, like, they're trying to humanize the Sand People. Why would, like, it's just, what a mess. And Ahsoka comes, who despite appearing in The Mandalorian Book of Boba Fett, her solo series felt more like Star Wars Rebels Season 5. Yup, sure did. The Mandalorian balanced bringing in pre-existing characters and still being new viewer-friendly. Ahsoka was so tied to the events of Rebels that people who didn't watch the 75-episode animated series certainly would be lost. Yup. 100%. Another boner by Dave Filoni. Rebels might be available to watch on Disney Plus alongside Ahsoka, but that is a big ask for the audience. Lore became the main focus of this series and only hurt them. Mandalorian Season 3 delved deep into the Mandalorian culture in Star Wars The Clone Wars while also retooling the series to fill out plot lines from the scrapped Rangers of the New Republic. This made Mandalorian Season 3 different from previous 2 seasons and had years of backstory and mythology audiences needed to remember from other series. This is becoming a huge problem. I've been saying this again. I said this in my last video too. They want you to just have to get into every single possible bit of content to understand what the heck is going on. Not everybody's seen the 75 episodes of Rebels. And again, when a huge portion of your audience is adults that don't watch cartoons, you got to figure out a way to make it work without tying it in so deeply to everything else. But they have this thing where they want everything to tie into everything else. And it's really stupid. It shrinks the galaxy. You could go on and you could do any kind of stories, like literally anything. And for some reason, these guys want all the main characters meeting up and tied in. And imagine if they did the Ahsoka show without Sabine, without Ezra. Like, Ezra and Thrawn should be dead, right? Let's be real here. They should be dead. Why not do a new show? You know, well, she should be dead too, actually. You know what? I take that all back. The whole thing's stupid because she should have died. Vader should have killed her too. She should be dead. But these guys can't let their characters die, which shows you that they're scared to come up with something new. They're just too scared to do it. And they don't know how. They don't know what to write, what character to write. Boy, are they ever... It's dying, guys. It's just dying. I don't know. I'm probably not going to go watch this movie. Like, I don't want to pay money to see this movie. This Mandalorian and Grogu movie. Like, I don't want to give them money. Like, I don't know, man. Like, unless I can see it for free, I don't think I'm going to watch it. As much as I want to do a review on it, and I know I have a Star Wars channel, it's like, dude, after Mandalorian Season 3, I don't want to pay to watch this garbage. And I don't want to pay to see Dave Filoni try and tie all these stupid plot lines together. It's going to be a total gong show. I don't know. Yeah, there was a couple of things in the trailer that looked kind of cool. Like, I like the Scout Walker and all that stuff. But going down the mountain, but it's like, I think the plot's going to be stupid, and I'm sick of adventures and babysitting. Let's get back to, like, Star Wars, man. Grogu should have just stayed with Luke. Like, everything they do is a mistake. Like, everything they do. Dave Filoni is treating the Mandoverse like Star Wars: The Clone Wars. One giant story that jumps between different characters' points of view. Yes, that worked for The Clone Wars because it was still one series, but now this is 3 separate live-action series with a 4th one on the way. These limited episode seasons also shift focus from the title characters, with Mando taking over a good portion of the Book of Boba Fett, had Ahsoka, the Book of Boba Fett, and now defunct Rangers of the New Republic being packaged as one giant Star Wars series with a rotating cast of characters. This might have helped it not feel so spread out and disjointed so quickly. Yes. As it stands, it feels like a lot of homework. And when they say, let me know in the comment section, when this person is bringing up the Rangers of the New Republic, is that like where they got some of the stuff having to do with the Mandalorians and stuff in season 3? Was that what the Rangers of the New Republic was supposed to be about? And imagine if that's the case, you literally squashed a second Jon Favreau-led show. So Jon Favreau starts the MCU off with Iron Man. Killer. Then he starts off the Disney streaming with The Mandalorian Season 1. Great show. I wouldn't say killer, but great. Really good show. And then he does Season 2. And I don't know what happened because the writing took a nosedive in Season 3 and he was obviously heavily involved there. But then he did 2 bangers. Like, he's done some great work. And then he has this show called Rangers of the New Republic with an extremely popular former UFC fighter woman. And they always talk, oh, the women, oh, we need strong women. This is literally like the epitome of strong woman. But because she's a conservative and voiced and said publicly that she's a conservative, they fired her? That is insane. And yes, that's why they fired her. Don't be an idiot. Don't be a baby child dummy. That's why they fired her. People are allowed to have opinions. And her opinion just didn't fall. And so they squashed a possible Jon Favreau banger show. And then somehow, I guess it's with the Mandalorians, I guess? Is that how it's tied into Mando Season 3? And then they made a mess of that? This is an absolute disaster. The more you analyze it, I can't believe how bad it is. It's just another thing. It's just, what a disaster of a company. I've never seen anything like it. I've never seen so many self-inflicted wounds and just decisions that, as a fan looking, like, we can all see. It's like, it's so obvious. Like, why did you make those decisions? Why? What was the point of it? What were you thinking? Why do you think every Star Wars fan is into every single part of Star Wars media and is eating up everything? I don't have time. I don't have time to read every book and read every comic and watch every single episode of every single show. And people don't have time for that. So when you're making these live action things, you have to think about that and try and make sure that you keep it to the story itself. Like this article says, where The Mandalorian it's telling a story throughout the season, but they're self-condensed each episode. You could sit down and watch one episode and enjoy it and move on and never watch another one again. And I think they're going to force people to get into all these other medias to get their answers to stuff, like answers to Palpatine and stuff. It's like, no, dude. People don't have time to do that. People don't want to do that. I don't know what they were thinking. And the now defunct Rangers of the New Republic being packaged as one giant series with rotating cast of characters, this might have helped, if not feel so spread out and disjointed so quickly. Yeah, we already said that. As it stands, it feels like a lot of homework. Yeah, exactly. Like, it's like, you're not just allowed to just be entertained by it. Now it's like, it has to be like your religion now. Like, you have to like sit down and do homework to understand anything. It's so stupid. Oh, it's so bad. And Dave Filoni, I don't know if it's his ego or what, but like, Dave, it's not like everyone's watched all of your cartoon stuff, dude. I mean, yeah, okay, Clone Wars did okay, sure. But not everybody's watched it. It's like you're pigeonholing yourself into a very small portion of the audience. The big portion of the audience is the movie-going audience. That's where your bread and butter is. Mandalorian seasons 1 and 2, a year between television series, a standard gap between streaming services. Book of Boba Fett arrived a year later. Yeah, and then the Mandalorian season 3 didn't air until 2023, 3 years from season 2. I'm telling you, it was done. And then they thought, oh, we'll put him in the Book of Boba Fett, and that'll make the Book of Boba Fett more popular. And then they literally took 2 episodes from season 3 and shoehorned them into the Book of Boba Fett. I am convinced of it. And they did that because they wanted the Book of Boba Fett to be popular, and they thought putting Luke in there would do that. I'm thoroughly convinced. Otherwise, nobody was going to watch it because it looked like crap. While the character did appear in Book of Boba Fett, it still took a long time for audiences to wait. He should have been Boba Fett. This is just the stupidity. Meanwhile, Ahsoka aired in August 2023, 3 years after her debut in The Mandalorian, which is, again, so stupid. You can't... It's so terrible. So disorganized. While it did arrive just a few months after The Mandalorian Season 3, it also required viewers to remember her role in The Mandalorian and, additionally, Star Wars, The Clone Wars, and Rebels, which had been off the air for years. Yes! It's ridiculous. Ahsoka Season 2 is not expected to air until 2026, a 3-year gap between Season 1 and 2. These long gaps between seasons make it difficult to maintain audience engagement. And how would they not know that? Aren't you supposed to be Hollywood people like Kathy? Aren't you supposed to be like the executive producer of the century? Like what? How would you not know that? No one's going to care. Like, no one's sitting around being like, oh my gosh, the Mortis gods. I'll wait 10 years to see that. Like, no one cares. Apathy has 100% set in. These shows are going to bomb. The Mando movie will make some money, but these shows are going to... Ahsoka Season 2 is going to bomb. I'm telling you. It's going to be like Acolyte. Below is a chart that tracks the Mandoverse series from its premiere on Disney Plus to its conclusion, and the number of episodes per season. What? Skeleton Crew's part of this too now? Oh, this is just a disaster. What a disaster. What are they doing? They had an opportunity to do something that's outside of all that. No, there's no way. If it's tied in, I'm telling you right now, if Ahsoka shows up in that show or one of these people, I'm going to be like, this is retarded. Like, this is absolutely ridiculous. This needs to be its own separate thing that has nothing to do with Filoni's stupid Clone War / Rebel / Mandoverse nonsense that's just completely discombobulated. This should be its own thing. So far, the longest gap is between Ahsoka and Skeleton Crew, which will amount to 14 months between series. Many viewers might not even realize that Skeleton Crew is even connected to the man. So it is connected? To the Mandalorian, meaning audiences might feel like they won't see the story continue until 2026. Stop connecting everything! You morons! They're so stupid! They are the dumbest people ever. 39 episodes have aired as of this writing, with 8 more on the way. This is somehow both a lot of episodes and not enough. It certainly is a lot for someone to catch up on, but over 5 years isn't enough to keep someone hooked with the gaps between entries. 100%. It's dying, guys. Well, it's dead. It's a corpse that's being puppeteered around, basically, right now, by people who don't want to take responsibility for killing it. By the time The Mandalorian and Grogu hits theaters, it will have been over a year since Skeleton Crew ended, 3 years since Mando Season 3, and almost 7 years since the series debuted. While Star Wars movies before Disney had a 3-year gap between films, the rarity made audiences take note of when one was coming. Even following Disney's purchase of Star Wars, they released a Star Wars movie every year with a 2-year gap for films in the sequel trilogy that had a spin-off film between them. This long gap is expected between films, but television series risk losing audiences as the longer time passes. They will forget major storylines and plot points and move on to other series. 100%. I've been saying this forever. Forever. And I know they're trying to normalize, like, I know there's been other shows too that have big gaps. It's not smart, man. Every year. Just like, I'm not that old, okay? And I am in the middle of the biggest, chunk of audience. And we grew up with seasons. So you had a show come out in the fall, and then the next season was the following spring, or, if it was super popular and they invested in it, or you just have every fall or every winter, winter to spring, you would have a season. But every year, you didn't have these gaps. It's the idea that we're all just sitting around with bated breath, thinking about all the plot lines and how they're going to end. I don't even remember half the stuff, and I review these shows. It's such a big gap. I don't even know what's going on. Star Wars should not be afraid of new. Mandalorian began, it was new and exciting. The decision set it after Return of the Jedi and before The Force Awakens opened a whole host of storytelling possibilities with years of material. With Mark Hamill and Harrison Ford being too old to reprise their roles and Carrie Fisher sadly passing away, the creators would need to craft new exciting characters or give lesser-known characters the spotlight. At first, this is exactly what they did. They created new characters. Well, he's basically Boba Fett, but whatever. Din Djarin, Grogu, and Fennec Shand, while also expanding roles for characters like Bo-Katan, Boba Fett, and Ahsoka. Yet the series seems stuck in a rut. Ironically, as the Mandoverse has grown, it has also shrunk. Every conflict is seemingly centered on the same core group of characters, and the main motivation to tell stories is to either explain elements from the Rise of Skywalker or set up an adaptation of Timothy Zahn's Thrawn novels, but with the Mandoverse characters in the lead roles. Boom! I think this person's been listening to my videos. I think the person who wrote this article watched my videos and wrote this article. Because you guys know I've been saying this for a very long time. This was very obvious and clear-cut, and I don't know how they were so stupid to do what they did. Well, it has been fun to see characters like Cobb Vanth, Black, Kirsten, and Hu Yang being brought to live action. The franchise is primarily focused on bringing in previously established characters instead of creating new ones. However, Skeleton Crew thankfully will change that. They've even squandered the pre-existing characters as they could have put some together to center them as the leads of Rangers of the New Republic. But instead, they scrapped the series after Lucasfilm fired Gina Carano because she's conservative, and now she's suing them, and she's probably going to win. It's just a litany of dumb. A litany of dumb. Oh my gosh, people got offended on Twitter. Twitter's real life. Fire her. Fire her. No, Twitter's not real life. And if a bunch of losers on Twitter can't handle somebody else having a different opinion, you just ignore them and move on. And make the show anyway. That show would have done really well, I think. I do. They wouldn't even let age stop them, as they have now digitally de-aged Mark Hamill twice to return as Luke Skywalker. It now feels like the Mandoverse is sticking with what fans know. You know what would have been really smart? Like I said earlier, just let him let him take Grogu and let's never see them again. Simple as that. Maybe down the line, maybe 10 years down the line, you have a show about his Jedi Order, and maybe Grogu's one of the students that, gets blown up or burned or whatever in the fire. Even though I hate that and I hate The Last Jedi. But when he took him, that should have been it. Mando goes back to doing other stuff. That's what should have happened. Whether he's working for, what's his name, Grief or whatever he's doing. I don't know. But the fact that they were back together, it was such a stupid decision. The decision making on these guys is so dumb. It now feels, because ultimately everyone did like Grogu, but we liked Din more. Din was it was his show, right? It now feels like the Mandoverse is sticking with what fans know, sometimes giving them the tiniest morsel, like featuring Cad Bane for less than 5 minutes of screen time in the Book of Boba Fett. This stands in sharp contrast to series like Andor and The Acolyte, which have pushed Star Wars in new directions. The Acolyte is a lore-breaking, disgusting, twisted mess. Andor is a pretty good show. It has a few problems, but overall it's decent. There's a few stupid things though, like they're practicing marching like an imperial and all this. Like, there was some stupid stuff that just dragged it on that was unnecessary. But anyway, whatever. It was pretty decent. Well, and I also don't really like the amoral rebels, but whatever. Despite all this controversy surrounding the accolade, its decision to explore the High Republic era, which was only seen in the novels and comics, made Star Wars feel fresh again with new characters and settings. No, that was about as stale as a McDonald's bun that's been underneath your car seat for 10 years. Series like Andor have also shown that Star Wars television can be more than entertaining. It is deep, thoughtful television on par with anything on HBO, Netflix, or Prime Video. Maybe this is why shifting from Disney Plus series to feature films might be the best course of action for the Mandoverse. No, just end it, dude. Oh, I hate that Mandoverse. It's Filoni-verse. It's Jabroni-verse. If they want to make loose adaptations of the Thrawn trilogy, it is better to make it a movie rather than a television series. Oh, Thrawn is being used by Dave. It's so frustrating. He shouldn't even be there. They can zero in on and eliminate a lot of padding that has filled up the streaming series like Ahsoka. It's too late, guys. The story's stupid. Nobody cares anymore. It can be a trilogy set between the original and sequel, bridging the gap and making for an even more epic Star Wars viewing experience. It's too late. It's too late because the foundation's done. The Mandoverse has been fun, but after its feature film, it might be time to say goodbye to this era. Try something new. Well, they're gonna do Rey! Then after it's all over, Star Wars can explore new eras of its series, films. Like, no, I don't trust any of these people to do anything. They're gonna screw it up no matter what they do. This is depressing. I'm gonna end here. This is just making me more mad. It's very depressing. I have no hope at all that any of these idiots. I just tweeted today. It's on its last 5 years. So what they're gonna do now is they're gonna dangle this corpse around for the next 5 years, and then I'm gonna guess in about 10 years they're just gonna sell it to somebody else because it's done. It's over. It's a joke. It's stupid. The stories are a mess. They're a total convoluted mess. And I've said it once, I've said it a million times. It all boils down to them using these stupid shows to try and explain the stupid sequels. And at first they start off pretty good, like Mando did in season 1 and 2, and then it veers off because someone up top says, no, The Mandalorian's popular, use it to explain how stupid our plot points were in the sequels. And then John goes, oh, no, okay, I guess, yay. And then writes a season that's based on that, on explaining stupid Palpatine coming back. Like, these people are so stupid, it is beyond comprehension. This was a simple task that they completely botched and continue to botch. And no, people aren't going to go watch your 50 million cartoon episodes to understand stuff, Dave. It's never going to happen, so you need to get over that and write something proper. That makes sense. Anyways, guys, let me know in the comment section. I know that was a big rant, but it's over. If you like this content, please like and subscribe. It always helps the channel. Feel free to check it out else on my channel. Have yourselves a really good day.